This week I went to Motorcycle Live and it was proper fun. The sort of day out that kind of reminds you why everyone secretly wishes that they looked good in leather and could justify another wildly impractical hobby. And honestly, who doesn't like bikes? And if you don't, totally fine. But are you okay? No. Anyway, since my brain is now like 80% engine noise, it does seem like the perfect time to talk about Suboden Khan. Now, his pre-order is coming up soon. I'm far too disorganised to know whether or not it'll be out, gone, hiding behind a paywall by the time I upload this. But anyway, he's around the corner. Corner? The point is, he rides a very cool bike, and I just saw a bunch of very cool bikes. So I thought if we smash the two together in a very PG way, we can talk about Suboden Khan. As always, my videos are tailored to beginners, so if you are a seasoned veteran, just drop your brains in the comments because it always does help somebody new. Without further ado, let's go. Suboden Khan, the first Khan of the White Scars, basically runs the first company, which is kind of like it is the Spear Point Brotherhood. He's like a bloke who was born in the saddle and never quite bothered to get off. But what does that even mean? Let's break this down. So in Warhammer 40K, specifically among the White Scars, a Khan is basically their version of a captain or a commander, but with extra horsepower and a cultural upgrade. Now, White Scars, they don't do the whole sort of like march neatly in a line thing. They're all about speed, hit and run attacks, and looking cool on bikes. So instead of calling their leaders captains like everyone else, they use titles inspired by the ancient Krogan tribes. Khan, Great Khan, Storm Seers, all that sort of like warrior flavour that makes them really cool. Now, a Khan will usually do a few things. For example, commands a Brotherhood, which is their equivalent of a company, leads from the front, usually on a bike, because, well, of course, he has the authority to shout ride, and everyone actually listens. Wow, my camera angle is not correct. Let's just move that and pretend we didn't notice. Okay. Khan is also basically doing like a Space Marine cavalry officer cosplay, but in a canon deadly serious way. So Khan is kind of like the White Scars captain who prefers 200 miles per hour problem solving. What even are the White Scars? If you are totally new, absolutely fine. They are basically the Space Marines who looked at all that grim dark misery of the 41st millennium and was like, yeah, that's cool, but let's do it fast. No, they're one of the original legions, descended from Jurga Khan, who I always vote for as my second favourite Primarch. He's essentially, if you think Genghis Khan, in power armour with a need for speed that would even make like Valentino Rossi raise an eyebrow. Is Valentino Rossi still a thing? Is he still going? Who knows? Anyway, while everyone else in the Imperium is kind of trudging around in heavy boots shouting about duty and honour, the White Scars are already halfway across the battlefield on a bike. Wind in their hair that they definitely don't have. Their vibe is, it looks like this: fast attacks, motorbikes, hit and run tactics, more motorbikes, and a little bit of poetry, which is quite surprising but also cool. Now, they're nomadic, they're honour bound, they are slightly terrifying in that that a man enjoys going 200 miles an hour through enemy fire far too much kind of way. Very polite about it though, in a I'm now going to remove your head, sorry about the mess kind of man. Now, basically, the White Scars are the cool biker Space Marines that your mum absolutely did warn you about. But if we go back to Suboden Khan, he's the sort of rider who makes you wonder if he sleeps on his bike, like a Mandalorian on a budget, but kind of from atop his trusty war steed. He leads the chapter's veteran outriders straight into whatever fresh hell the day has cooked up, usually with the calm confidence of someone who's already accepted that this is going to hurt, but we're going to pretend it's fine. Now, despite already having a CV full of fearless exploits, the sort of thing HR would probably file under strong leadership qualities, slight health and safety nightmare. Now, Suboden Khan really made a name for himself during the early days of the Third War for Armageddon. Now, the Third War for Armageddon is basically Warhammer 40K's version of that huge disaster we all pretend still isn't happening. Armageddon, for context, it's a planet that kind of seems to exist purely so that terrible things can happen to it. It's had more wars than most people have had hot dinners, and by the time the third one rolls around, everyone's past caring and just trying not to explode. In simple terms, it's like this massive apocalyptic punch-up between the Imperium and an absolutely colossal orc invasion led by Ghazghkull Thraka, the orc equivalent of a motivational speaker who only talks about violence. Every Space Marine chapter, guard regiment, and a random civilian with a stick gets involved. It's basically the galaxy's worst vast music festival. The fighting never really ends. Even after the official war wraps up, the planet is still covered in orcs, Imperial forces, fire, smoke, probably someone complaining about paperwork in the corner. Now, the Third War for Armageddon isn't just a single battle. It's this massive, worldwide, years-long slog where heroes are made and legends are forged and absolutely nobody gets their deposit back. Anyway, back then, he was serving under Chapter Master Jubal Khan, who is not exactly known for handing out praise like it's party favours. So when Jubal actually sort of complimented him, you know something dramatic had happened. And it had. Suboden was the one who led the defence of Dante's Canyon, which is like a place full of vital promethium drilling rigs and absolutely zero chill. So right as the orcs decided they fancied it for themselves, naturally, he grabbed an assault squad, charged straight into the worst of it, took the orc leader's head off in a very sorry mate, union rules kind of way, and sent the rest of the greenskins just legging it. So in short, it's classic White Scars problem solving, I guess. Ride fast, hit hard, remove the loudest orc, job done, and home in time for dinner before the missus gives you a hard time about it. Now, after the whole Armageddon fiasco, Suboden barely had time to wash off the orc dust out of his own armour before trouble kind of turned up on his own doorstep. Now, Huron Blackheart, the bloke who treats piracy like a lifestyle, decided to invade Chogoris, which is home of the White Scars. Now, for a little bit of context, because he is a really cool character, Huron Blackheart is basically what happens when a space marine decides the Imperium's rules are optional, and piracy looks like a much more entertaining career path. Now, originally, he was Chapter Master of the Astral Claws, which are like a perfectly respectable bunch until he went full on I can fix the Imperium myself, thanks mode. This did not go well. Cue the Badab War, which is like a massive civil conflict where Huron annoyed literally everyone, up to and including the High Lords. Now, after losing the war and probably most of his original body, he reinvented himself as Huron Blackheart, slapped on some bionics, and then legged it into Maelstrom to found the Red Corsairs, which are like a chaos-leading pirate fleet that sails the galaxy, looting, pillaging, and generally ruining people's days. Now, his whole vibe is like Space Marine turned warlord, runs a giant pirate empire, has a bionic claw that's basically can open up for heroes, always causing trouble somewhere he definitely shouldn't be. And the best way for me to summarise him is, basically Captain Hook crossed with Darth Vader, but with the energy of that one Warhammer-obsessed mate who got too into being the villain during D&D and then never quite stopped. That's him. Like Hook, he is a dramatic pirate lord with a nasty claw and a habit of making everything someone else's problem. Like Vader, he used to be that respected leader before he went, actually, I'm going to do things my way, and then immediately face planted into evil bionics and bad decisions. And then kind of also like Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, he kind of operates out of a chaotic, swirling space hell zone instead of anywhere sensible. And if you wrap that all up in some power armor and spice it with chaos corruption and give him the organizational skills of a slightly disgruntled middle manager, you've got Huron Blackheart. Anyway, back to it. Let's go. Things got messy very quickly. So in the middle of the carnage, Jurga, the then first Khan, ended up on the wrong end of Lord Discordant's very unfriendly cutlery is how I'm going to word this. Now, he survived technically, but the chapter then had to scoop him up and pop him into a dreadnought, which is basically the Warhammer equivalent of like an early retirement, except you will still get shot regularly. Now, with Jurga now unable to lead the Spear Point Brotherhood from inside his metal coffin, someone had to take the reins, and since Suboden was already proving himself annoyingly competent, he got this promotion. And that's kind of how he became the first Khan. Battlefield chaos, a fallen predecessor, and a very reluctant game of tag, you're it. Now, Jurga Khan wasn't the only one who had a thoroughly miserable time during the whole ordeal. The great Khan Jubal, like we talked about, also got the short end of the cosmic stick. Now, he was captured by our boy Huron Blackheart, who we just talked about, which is never a promising start, and then treated to torture, so grim that even the Inquisition would probably wince and politely look away. Now, Jubal technically survived. Now, his mind is intact, but his body has had it. Even the chapter's finest healers took one look and collectively went, nah, sorry, mate. Now he leads the White Scars from what is essentially the world's least comfortable hospital bed, mentally sharp as ever, but about as combat ready as a retired Roomba. So then we enter Suboden. Now, Jubal, knowing his days before either death or the dreadnought retirement plan are numbered, he's been leaning heavily on Suboden, passing down wisdom and strategy, and probably a few definitely don't do what I did kind of lessons. Now, Suboden's been made master of the War Council, which is the guy who gets to call all the other Khans together for Kurultai, which is basically a Space Marine staff meeting, but with more honour and significantly fewer donuts. Now, his authority has gotten so solid that most of the other captains reckon it's just a matter of time before Suboden takes over the Great Khan. And honestly, no one's complaining. He's already doing half the job, and the promotion would just kind of make it official. Now, as you'd expect from the first captain of a chapter that treats speed like a religion, Suboden Khan has a stash of relics that would make any White Scar start revving their engine out of sheer jealousy. Now, his bike is charmingly named Thunder, and it isn't just some off-the-rack ride. It was gifted to him by Belisarius Cawl during the Ultima founding, because apparently when you're a tech priest with a god complex, you just hand out hover bikes like party favours. Why is this cool? Well, Belisarius Cawl is basically the Imperium's mad scientist, but with tenure and absolutely no adult supervision. Okay, in more polite terms, he's an ancient archmagos of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, this basically means he's so old that he is held together by wires and willpower and whatever dodgy firmware updates he gives himself at 3 a.m. Now, he's been around since the Horus Heresy, which means he's had like 10,000 years to tinker with things, break things, and improve things until everyone else gets nervous. Now, his greatest hits include things like inventing the Primaris Marines because he decided Space Marines needed a DLC patch, making weapons and vehicles nobody really understands, and this includes half the stuff in 40k 8th edition. He also annoys literally every other tech priest because he ignores half their sacred rules and pretends the other half don't exist. Now, he is constantly asking the questions, but what if I just and then building the rest anyway, regardless of safety and legality or any common sense. Now, imagine, I guess, Doc Brown from Back to the Future, but immortal and plugged into the internet and far more likely to accidentally create a heretical death machine. That's Belisarius Cawl. Now, Thunder, the good old sturdy steed, basically works on the same sort of like tech you see in like the big repulsor and impulsor tanks, anti-grav plates mixed with like turbine engines, all stitched together in that, like, don't ask how it works, it just does kind of style. Now, the end result is that Suboden can zip across terrain that even most seasoned outriders would look at and go, absolutely not, never doing that. In short, it's less a bike and more a sci-fi cheat code. And of course, Suboden gets to ride it. Now, though Suboden Khan can scrap perfectly well on foot, he's a Space Marine, not a lost tourist. Now, he's far more comfortable doing what all White Scars secretly want to do, and that's sit on a fast bike and cause problems at high velocity. So he charges into battle, atop Thunder, leading a formation of veteran outriders, like he's fronting the world's angriest motorcycle display team. His weapon is called Stormtooth. It's the traditional First Khan's glaive, basically the family heirloom, except instead of being kept in a glass cabinet, it's used to violently unmake the chapter's enemies. Now, it's beautifully balanced power blade that can work as a lance when he's charging, or be swung from the saddle to slice through enemy infantry with about all of the subtleties of like a lawnmower having a breakdown. Anyway, basically Suboden is at his best when he's on his bike, holding a giant glowing stick and heading full speed toward sort of someone who's about to have a very, very bad day. So I think that kind of summarises him quite well. A biker, a warlord, a reluctant promotion recipient, and then the owner of a bike so fancy it might as well have come with its own warranty card from Call's personal madness laboratory. I think after kind of talking about that, I feel even more justified in wandering around motorcycle live grinning like an idiot, because if the White Scars teach us anything, it's kind of that sometimes life really is better at 200 miles per hour with a questionable sense of self-preservation. Suboden just kind of takes that philosophy, straps his anti-grav plates to it, and then aims it directly at the nearest poor sod in green skin. I think if his model's up for pre-order when you're watching this, great. If it's not, then what's the point, really? Anyway, let me know in the comments, of course, what you think of Suboden Khan. Again, if you have any knowledge or insights, because you have been into Warhammer for far longer than I. It does always help new people. As always, I'm only going to implore you one time to please do all those things you need to do to support my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.